Oh my god, my face. See, this is what happens to my face if I don't touch it up the entire day. I just get so shiny, but at this point I'm just like, it's a glow. I really don't care. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I realized that I was supposed to post something yesterday, but due to so many things happening, number one, the video that's supposed to be scheduled this week just took so much more time to shoot than I originally thought. It was just supposed to be a video on how to edit photos to look amazing for Instagram, social media, blog, whatever, through either your phone or your laptop, how to use Photoshop, Lightroom, different apps. And halfway through I realized, because I am trying to squeeze how to edit on a laptop and also on a phone onto one video, I'm gonna have to shoot multiple times and different times. Like, it's too much. So I need some more time with that. I'm sorry, I apologize. But I wanted to make sure that I gave you guys something for this week, hence why you're getting a video on Thursday as opposed to Wednesday. Damn it, I'm trying. I'm sorry. But mama's trying. So let's start this video. As you can tell in my little title, I want to talk about what it was like for me growing up in the US. I've started to realize that apparently some people don't know that I grew up in the US, because I have done multiple videos where I have talked about this. I've also talked about this on social media and stuff like that. But yes, I did grow up in the US, hence the accent. This accent is not fake. And I think people assume that it is fake because I know how to turn it on and off. I know how to tone it down when people are not understanding me, because this is my natural accent. This is how I think. But sometimes I will speak to somebody and I can tell that they're not understanding what I'm saying, so I'll tone it down. And also sometimes, I can talk like this. And I have noticed that when I do that in my vlogs and regular videos, a lot of you guys understand that I'm just like flipping up and down. It's fun for me. But some people are just like, haha, see, she slipped up. I didn't slip up. It's like, I just enjoy doing that accent. It's fun for me. Anyways, so that's why I wanted to do this video, and also to bring you guys a little bit into how I grew up, and also to answer questions about what it was like growing up in the US, because some people are either A, just curious, and other people have been thinking about moving there, whether it's for college or for work, whatever the situation. So I just compiled a very short list, just answering basic questions about how I grew up and what it's like growing up in the US. Okay, so let's start with the basic, why did I move to the US? I moved to the US with my mom and my sister. My mom got the opportunity to get her PhD in African history, and she took both me and my sister with her because she is a single mom of two. So when I moved to the US, I was either in the 2nd or 3rd grade. I can't remember which one that is. So that's either standard 2 or standard 3. Yeah, so that's why I moved to the US, and I stayed there up until I was around 2021. So basically majority of my entire growing up has been in the US. So what is life really like in the US? So I'm just gonna speak from my perspective. It varies depending on your background and your financial situation, but our financial situation is not what people expect. A lot of people think that I come from a rich family. I do not. We do not come from money at all. So what we have in our family right now, we did not have growing up. We did not even start accumulating the stuff that we have now until like 6 years ago. So basically, I do not come from money. My mom had to work 3 jobs to basically keep us afloat while we were in the US. And while she's working those 3 jobs, she was also a full-time student and also raising 2 children. My mom is a beast beyond belief. My mom has worked so hard to get to where she is right now, and even like small little things will happen, and like me and my sister will call our mom and be like, I don't think you understand how far you have come. Like one of the things is we now have a family home. We never had a family home, I mean, except for like the Shags one. Everyone has like that Shags one, but even then that was like my shushu's house. Like that thing had been there for like decades upon decades upon decades, but we never had a family home. And when my mom finally built our first family home, I remember like looking at my mom, and she started tearing up because when we were in the US, we used to stay in this really tiny apartment, super small. It was a 2-bedroom apartment where the living room, the dining room, the kitchen, hallway, it was basically a square, and the living room, dining room, everything was in one room, and then those 2 bedrooms attached, and those bedrooms were the size of a shoebox. And in the apartment that we were living in, it was assisted housing for students, which meant my mom didn't have to pay crazy rent as most people would have to pay if you lived outside of these school housing apartments. And even with that, my mom still had to have multiple jobs to just keep food on the table. And there was also a thing that we used to go to called, what was it? The Catholic Church cabinet, something like that, where my mom would go most of the times by herself, but once in a while my sister and I would go with her, where we would stand in line for over an hour outside the Catholic Church, where they would open the doors to people who make under a certain amount of money and give them foods that we otherwise would not be able to afford. Don't get me wrong, my mom was always able to feed us. We never went a day without eating. And obviously, because y'all, if you saw my childhood photos, man, I was thick. I was thick. So I obviously never went a day without like 17 meals. But like snacks and things that we just couldn't afford, we'd have to go there to get such meals. And also it would just help reduce the amount of stress that my mom would have when it comes to bills. At least if we went to the cabinet and we had some food for that week, that's something that she would not have to spend money on, but instead she would save up for other things that we would need eventually. And eventually means Joy would always end up having to go to the hospital for some reason or another, because I was just a reckless ass child. So financially speaking, the US is very, very hard to live in. From my experience, again, we as a family knew a handful of people who were not living in debt. And I know in the US, it's a credit system. Like you have to build credit in order for you to do anything. So everybody has credit cards. That's natural there. But even Beyonce has credit cards. But majority of the people that we knew had to have multiple credit cards to even survive a month. Like there was no way you could just survive out of a paycheck. Because my mom, for example, living paycheck to paycheck, every single 2 weeks, money was just going out very, very quickly. Medically speaking, great hospitals, expensive as absolute hell. So expensive, it doesn't even make any sense. So expensive that every single time we would come to Kenya for like a summer vacation or whatever, my mom would make us do an entire body just check. If you have one cavity, you're fixing every single cavity. If you need braces, you're getting them done in Nairobi. If you need a kidney, we're gonna try to figure it out in Nairobi, because medically, it is so expensive. I had to have a root canal once while we were in the US. And ever since then, my mom was just like, nope. Every time we go for summer break, if you have anything, it has to be fixed, because my bill was somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000. That's $300K to $400K. For a root canal. And trust me, all that was going into credit cards. It was, my mom was not just forking over cash like that. School wise, the city that we lived in, which by the way I never mentioned, I grew up in East Lansing, Michigan, which is in the middle of Lansing, which is part of Michigan state itself, and it's a campus city. So when it comes to public schools, it tends to have more money going into the public schools than if you lived in a big city and you were going to more of like the inner city schools. So my schools were fantastic. I feel like I had amazing opportunities that I probably wouldn't have had given the fact that we did not have private school money while we were living here. So their schools were free, or still are free. So my school was fantastic. What were the biggest culture shocks I went through? So when I first arrived, I was so young, so for me I didn't really have a culture shock. But then as I started getting slightly older, like let's say 8 or 9 or 10, I started getting hit by things that I was just like, this is weird. One of the biggest things was the difference in how some kids relate and talk to elders versus me. I am a Kenyan child, African AF, raised by an African mother. She's not about that life. So I had and still have a very serious respect for my elders, for my mom. I will never speak to her sideways. I'm 30 right now, and my mom can look at me from across the room with the "you better not do that" face, and I will immediately freeze and be like, oh crap, what am I doing? What am I doing? Just stop, just stop, just stop. But I experienced some kids, majority white. This is not a weird race thing, but what I noticed is majority of the time they were white. They would speak to elders in a way that I would just be like, wait, what's happening? One of my friends, when I was 10, I was at her house and we were playing with dolls, and she had like amazing video games and blah blah, so we were playing. And I remember we were in her room and her mom came in, told her to clean her room, and this girl, dead ass, straight up looked at her mom, told her, get out of my room, I told you I'm gonna clean it when I clean it, stood up, pushed her mom out, and slammed the door. Have you ever been so confused? Just the fact that she was just like, before she said all that other stuff, I was like, wait, what you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Wait. I didn't even know you could even go to like an elder. I didn't even know that was even an option, let alone telling them to themselves and kicking them out of a room that they pay rent for. My mom, and I'm sure y'all's moms are the same way, my mom would have come with a screwdriver. As soon as I slammed that door in her face, she would have come with a screwdriver, unscrewed all the hinges, and just casually removed the door, probably thrown it out, been like, you don't need this door anymore since you don't know how to respect me, gone to the bedroom, grabbed a belt, and just would have gone ham on me. Cause what? I didn't even know that was even like possible to talk to a parent like that. I was so confused. Another example of culture shock that I experienced outside of kids talking sideways to their parents was the level of ignorance. Things have changed a lot, especially with social media and the internet exposing the world to everybody else on the planet. But for years, I used to have to talk to grown-ass people, not even kids asking me these questions. I'm talking about, I'm 10 years old and like a 25-year-old is just like, oh my God, you're from Africa? First of all, Kenya was not really considered a country. As long as you're from Africa, you're just African. Nobody would ever acknowledge where you're from. But that's one thing. Another thing is a 25-year-old person looking at you dead in the eye being like, oh my God, you're from Africa? Wow. Have you ever pet a lion? What? Have you ever pet a lion? Like, who? What? Like the first time I saw a lion was the same place you saw a lion. In a zoo. Or in a reserve. You don't, like, what do you mean? But the funny thing is, a few years back, my friend and I were talking about the ignorance levels of how Americans used to be when it comes to the rest of the world. She's from Nepal. And we were talking about the same thing where I was telling her, can you believe somebody once asked me if I ever pet a lion? And I swear to you, 2 hours later, I turned on the news, and I was living in Kenya at the time. I turned on the news, and there was 2 lions. Oh, look at the road. I was just like, damn it, this is why people think that we just have wild animals everywhere. It's because of this shit. But yeah, the level of ignorance is, and was, mind-blowing. Or how they would be like, oh my God, you speak such amazing English. I've been speaking English since I was born. What are you talking about? Ooh, when I first arrived in the US, just because I was from Africa, I was forced to take an ESL class. Do you know what that is? English as a second language class. I was being taught how to speak English, and mind you, I was speaking English to the teachers, being like, I speak English. I speak English real good. First of all, I was speaking British style English. I was just articulate AF. I was straight off the boat. I had the best English, but just because I was from Africa, I had to take ESL. And I remember my mom was just like, I don't understand why we're doing this. And they're just like, no, but she needs to get acclimated to our way of English. And we were just like, there's different types of English. English is English. She can speak English. Let her be. Being an African girl, was I ever picked on? Oh my God, yes. I was picked on basically the entire time up until high school. Something happened in high school where people chilled a little bit. But yeah, I was picked on. It wasn't so bad. Like, it wasn't like straight up like abuse type of bullying, but I was picked on a lot. And a lot of it was very ignorant things, like, oh my God, you're from Africa, eh, boobale. That's them trying to pretend that they speak African. So yeah, those are good times. Those are good times. Good times. It helped me grow though, because if it wasn't for those days, social media would be really painful, because some of y'all out there are just mean for the hell of it. But because I went through that, I can genuinely just like take weird trolls and be like, you're silly troll. Was my Kenyan household any different from other households? Oh my God, yes. When I tell you my mom is Kenyan, my mother is Kenyan. My mother, she's a Kenyan. Like, all I ate was pilau, mukimo, githeri, chapo, mandazis. Like, that's the stuff that I ate on a constant basis, to the point that I used to get so excited to go to like my American friends' houses and have like just simple food. And then I'd be like, this is exciting, there's cheese on this stuff. And then they'd come to my house and they'd be like, this is amazing, there's like flavor and stuff in the food. And I was just like, it's just like, it's food, but y'all get cheese. But yeah, my house was super Kenyan AF. Discipline was super Kenyan AF, because I was one of those kids that needed to have a more, you know, a parent with a firm hand. If you know what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying. So much so that I am horrible in Gichuka, but the one like sentence that I would never ever forget, that was my mom all the time, because I used to test her. Oh my God, the fact that she never gave me up for adoption is amazing. But that line, no, like she's about to beat me so hard, I'm about to go around. That's what that means. She's about to backhand me until I'm back here. Like, I was gonna go around her and land right back here. That is how Kenyan my household was. Also, the culture was very Kenyan again. Outside of just my house, we had a lot of friends and family who are also Kenyan. And when a lot of people move into a new country, somehow you always just find people from the same country as you, and you guys just create your own little small community. So we'd always have like house parties and gatherings where all would listen to is like Kenyan music from Kenya, where I'd always like keep updated with mas, 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 pole, pole, mas, mas. Like, I knew all those songs when I moved back, like all of them, because we were all still like in the club. Okay, not in the club because I was younger than that, but we were all in family gatherings listening to such music. So my Kenyan household and surroundings were very Kenyan. It was just when I was outside the house that it would be very American. Kenyan food versus American food. I don't know, it depends. It depends on what you're into. If it's home cooked deliciousness, I will always pick Kenyan food, like always, especially when it comes to like my mom's food specifically. All day, day, it's amazing. But if you want to die from a heart attack, American food, man. Just the options of different ways to, like, you know, go into cardiac arrest is amazing. Like a burger where the buns have been replaced with donuts. It's called the Luther. Sweet and savory. Ugh, so good. Cheese on everything. Everything can be deep fried. Have you ever had a deep fried Oreo? Have you ever even thought about deep frying an Oreo? I never did until somebody else did, and I was just like, this is freaking delicious. Like, when it comes to like going above and beyond, we have very limited options when it comes to Kenyan food. But man, them Americans though, they know how to go ham. And I think it's just because it's one country that has so many different cultures. So it's just a melting pot of just deliciousness. So there's always something delicious to eat. Like, always. There was a reason why I was almost 90 kgs. Like, it was not by accident. That food is freaking delicious. But if you're trying to just have some good wholesome food, Kenyan all the way. Who would I hang out with the most while growing up? Well, family-wise, would always stick to very Kenyan-y African families. We had a lot of South African family friends. We had a lot of Kenyan family friends. We had family friends from Zimbabwe, Egypt, Sudan. We just had Nigeria. We had a lot of family friends from Africa. But just generally, if it was not African family, we'd always cling to other international families. So from Asia and parts of Europe. And the thing that I realized is, while you're in the US, you realize how much in common the rest of the world has with each other. Like, how much we have in common culturally, food-wise, everything. Like, we're so similar, except for the American, like, they're always very different. So we'd always, you know, cling to other international families because we all had the same, I don't know, just ways of life. And again, I am not knocking Americans in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying, as an African, as a Kenyan, we just used to cling to other internationals. But I did go through a phase where I had a very serious identity crisis because, and I'll talk about this later in my next point, I didn't know, especially when it came to school, I didn't know where I was. Because the schools that I went to, it was majority white. And if you were not white, you were black. And if you were not black, a small percentage of Hispanic and a very small percentage of internationals. Very small percentage. And those internationals were spread through like multiple grades. So just in your class alone, there was maybe like 4 or 5. So I had an identity crisis because when it comes to the internationals, I couldn't hang out with all of them just because we just didn't click. So what was left was the black and white. And when it came to that, there was an issue where, according to some of the blacks, I was not black enough to be black, and for the whites, I just was not white. And mind you, I'm not saying that they were racist. It's just, it's being able to click with somebody thing, if that makes any sense. So like culturally, the black people had their own cultural background, how they've been raised, the stuff that they talk about, music that they listen to, and the white people have the same thing. So I didn't know where I was supposed to be, but I just had a very serious identity crisis up until like high school, and more from like 10th grade, so that's Form 2. So from like 10th grade, I just started getting really comfortable with who I was, getting really comfortable with being African and being an international, and then somehow I just started finding more international people to hang out with, and I felt more comfortable with them. But with that said, I still had white friends and I still had black friends. It's just my core group were more of, you know, Brazilians, Afghanis, Indians, Chinese, Africans. That's where I spent most of my time with, but I mingled with everyone. Is racism real? Anybody who says that racism is over is dumb or lives in a box, because racism is still super alive and well and living its best life. But for me, it was different because I experienced racism from both white people and black people, which is weird. Like, there was moments where I experienced like same race racism, where since I was not African American, number one, it'd be more of like ignorant comments, but they would look down upon me because I was African. And it would be like little comments of like, so where are you from? Kenya. Oh, where's that? Africa. Oh, you're African? Do you see that face? It's not, oh, you're African. Oh, you're African? And I know things have changed a lot over the past couple of years, but just from my experience, up until I was in my 20s, I would have that moment of, oh, you're African? And I always used to be like, yeah, why is that? Why is that such a big deal? And when it comes to the white side, of course, there was those random like, hey, yo, nigger, go back to where you came from, nigger, like that. And those used to bother me, but not as much as when it was targeted to either my mom or my sister. Would I move back to the US? Honestly, no. I personally love it in Kenya so much. I can't see living in the US. I go there to visit. I would love to go see my sister all the time, see my nephew, because my sister lives there right now. Totally cool with that, but I personally don't want to live there. I love living in Kenya. I love the people that are around me. I love everything. I love just being here. I don't know. No, I would, I mean, I don't know. No, I wouldn't move there unless somehow I got a job that was gonna pay me like a ton of money, then yes. Anyways, that is the end of my video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it was interesting, and I hope I made you guys laugh a little bit. Good times, good times, good times. Anyways, so I will see you guys next week on Wednesday with my next video. Have a fabulous week. Love you guys. Bye.